and I was like, man, how do I stay an atheist after that? Hello there, my name is Alexander Highcliffe. I am an atheist, and for the first time in my adult life, I attended a church. Now sure, I went to a couple carol services and baptisms when I was a kid, but this was the first time that I ever attended an actual full-on Sunday service as an adult. But why would I do something like that? Was I just going to make fun of them? Well, no. On this channel, I talk about embodied virtue, a system of philosophy and self-improvement with the ultimate goal of solving the meaning crisis to take ourselves and our society to the highest point possible. And whether you agree with its ultimate conclusions or not, it's objectively the case that Christianity has done more than any ideology in human history in achieving this goal. Hoping to learn more about the truths Christianity holds and how I can interpret it into embodied virtue. I ultimately came away with a very positive experience and want to get across to you 3 things that I think every atheist should take away from Christianity. Those 3 things being transcendent value, communal positivity, and radical forgiveness. So I'd like to make it clear off the bat that when I use terms like transcendent, I'm not using them in a loose New Age sense. It has a technical meaning to me. Most problems we face can be solved. If there's a person in front of me stopping me from doing something, I can fight them. But it takes a special kind of thought to not only solve a problem, but transcend it. Instead of fighting a person, I can reach a social contract with them to move forwards together. And it's this kind of special problem solving that only humans have that have allowed us to transcend the natural world. If you pay attention exclusively to what's in the moment, you will quickly turn into a radically selfish person. You will attempt to win every social game you play. But if you instead think transcendently to your more long-term goals and try to align yourself with abstract values beyond the mere hedonism of the moment, you can learn to form more long-term productive strategies, letting go of yourself and ego in favor of something greater, and that is precisely the technical definition of transcendence. So what does this look like in a real sense? Well, humans are constantly competing in a hidden social hierarchy. Most communal spaces you enter will have at least some meanness or nastiness that you have to navigate through. Something happened to me after the service. This guy came up to me and he shook my hand and he looked me directly in the eyes and he said with such sincerity, "I'm so glad that you're here." And I was like, man, how do I stay an atheist after that? Because it's clear that something greater was at play in his motivations. All humans sometimes have ugly thoughts about our fellow man. Maybe you see someone and think that they are unattractive or overweight, or simply low in status and you act meanly towards them. But if you have a transcendent value, if you are valuing something greater than the mere moment, if you are in line with something as powerful as a god, you can learn to love your fellow man for their inherent being. The nastiness of the moment evaporates away as you literally transcend into a different way of acting. This is the type of love you can only have for a stranger, described by C.S. Lewis in his book The Four Loves. He calls it charity, loving someone not because of specific traits or relations that they may have regarding you, but loving them due to the mere fact that they are a human worth loving. And it's that kind of transcendent value that communities can have only in a religious context that atheism doesn't yet have a way of replicating. The second thing that blew me away was their sheer commitment to what I call communal goodness. Humanity is utterly blighted by the negativity bias. We love seeing things that are negative. Why? Because in the wild, things that are negative can have a high chance of literally killing you. Meanwhile, things that are positive may just be nice in a subjective sense. Therefore, the human brain has evolved to be twice as good at recognizing negative things as positive things. But as Randolph Nesse acknowledges in his book Good Reasons for Bad Feelings, the instincts that may be helpful in the wild are utterly useless in the modern world, as our hatred, reified by culture, railroads us into ugly communal practices. Exploitative reality shows such as My £100 Life or Kitchen Nightmares, cancel culture, and the related lolcow culture, and of course what on YouTube we like to call the exposed video, from Leafy is Here to James Somerton. But in this one specific building, exclusively on a Sunday, that starts to waste away. There was this gorgeous part during the service when the music died down and there was just this low, gorgeous major chord playing, and the preacher at the front allowed any member of the audience to shout out about anything they wished to express. And quickly, one woman at the front was talking about her experience driving through Scotland and looking upon these gorgeous mountains and the sheer feeling of majesty that gave her. Another person to the right, she started talking about trees and the way that their roots work and the beauty of the leaves and how this aspects of nature was inspiring to her. There was another point where anyone in the room that wanted someone to pray for them could raise a hand and people would walk over to them and start praying for them, as even if they didn't know them, the sheer option of sharing positivity in a communal space was indispensable. And sure, atheist culture can simulate some of these things. Baby showers celebrating life, the feeling at the end of a concert, poetry groups. but none can do so in this unreified, powerful sense. And the third thing that struck me was their radical forgiveness. As mentioned before, we love tearing other people down. When we look at a person who's done something immoral or on the internet a lolcow, laughing at them can give us a feeling of superiority. I'm not a racist, I'm not autistic, and my laughing at somebody who is solidifies my place within the social hierarchy. But under Christianity, specifically Protestantism, there's this idea that we are all indispensably sinners. The preacher at the front literally talked about getting up the 10 commandments, going down them one by one and saying, yep, I have committed every single one of these. Obviously he hadn't, say, murdered someone, but he talks about how holding hatred in your heart to another person is like a lesser form of murder. Like it or not, meritocracy, by definition, requires that we tear down people who don't meet our standards, leading to a world where, as the Bible puts it, to he who has everything, all will be given. From him who has nothing, all shall be taken. And it's only through radical forgiveness that we can ameliorate this, not by letting go of our standards, but just acknowledging that it's okay if we fall short of them. And this is the one thing that I think atheist culture has come the closest to accepting, because quite frankly, a world in which we are constantly judging and ostracizing each other is not long-term viable. Like it or not, the rise of everything from social media to literal sex robots is only going to make the so-called loneliness crisis worse. If we are separated from each other and fail to form a new ecology of wisdom that includes everyone in a system of meaning, mankind is doomed. Which will probably lead you to the question, why don't I just convert to Christianity? And the simple answer to that is simply that it's not true. The historical Jesus of Nazareth did not rise from the dead. Nor is there any evidence of a literal, paternal, conscious God watching over you every second. Christianity is a good thing, but my channel description doesn't say that I believe in goodness, it says that I believe in virtue. Truth and beauty are both forms of goodness. If I Photoshop a picture of myself, I might make myself more good looking, but at the expense of the truth of the photo. On the other hand, however, if I were to run into public and start screaming my deepest, darkest secrets, that may be true, I may be living up to my authenticity, but in the process, I'd ruin the beauty of that public space. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is that goodness is fickle. Sometimes goodness can contradict itself. Therefore, it's only when we can align ourselves with virtue that we can move forwards. Crime and Punishment is a beautiful book because it's so true. It reflects human nature so accurately that beauty emerges from it. And the more beautiful it gets, the more truth you feel. The more truth is included, the more beautiful it gets. This style of integrated, internally consistent goodness, where it acts like a pyramid, where the greater the goodness gets, the more they align together, is what I call virtue. And it's the movement towards that point at the top of the pyramid, that point of infinite goodness that we should be trying to attain. Christianity has multiple goodnesses it can offer me, but without truth, I simply can't accept them. Which is why, instead of accepting the systems we've been given, it's our jobs as people on self-improvement to look for something greater. And while for the time being, I intend to continue attending church because I think I have much to learn from it, long term, I acknowledge that I have a duty to build something better, and if you're interested in building that better thing with me, then subscribe to the channel. I make long-form philosophy videos here, shorts on Instagram, and if you'd like to have a conversation with me, my email will be linked below. I hope you learned something from this video, and remember to stay virtuous.